What's up, creators? So today we're going to keep moving this series along and we're going to add in the group functionality. So currently we have the login screen and we can log in and we basically just have static UIs that don't really do anything. We have this screen and then we also have this screen. Today we're going to make this screen almost completely functional. So before we dive into the big topic of the groups, you need to kind of think about what you need to do. So I made a little sheet like this, kind of describing what we need in a group. We need the group ID, we need the list of members, we need a unique group name, but actually I decided against that so we can remove it. Doesn't have to be unique, you'll just sort by group ID. Then current book we're reading, when the next book will be picked, all that stuff. This is for later. And couple things to consider: how to determine rotation for who picks the books. That's for later as well, but the two things we want to focus on today is these two. So how do we create a group? We just pick a group name and add an initial book at the beginning. So this step's not really what we're going to do today. That's going to be in the next episode probably, but we're basically going to pick a group name and create a group based on that name and add members and a couple other properties. Then how to join group. For this, we're just going to have to give them the actual group ID in order to be able to join it. And there's no checking or anything, but later on we would probably add that the group leader needs to accept or decline people that want to join. So alright, we can get into the code now. First things first, we need to update our model to have a group ID in here. So string group ID. Now we can add to here as well. And there, now we have the group ID. Now the big thing is in the root page that we have. The root determines which page we're going to go to, whether the home screen or login. We're going to change up the states a little bit. So we're going to add an unknown state. We're going to keep the not logged in state, then we're going to have a not in group state, and lastly an in group state. So this unknown will basically just, or if we restart the app and we're signed in, you'll see the login screen pop up a little bit. So we restart, you'll see the login screen pop up for a second and then it'll go to this. And of course I just ruined it, but whatever, that was the problem we were having. And now we're going to have the unknown screen where it just says nothing really. So let's add a quick loading screen that is very simple and basic. Alright, so we have our splash screen that's very basic. Now we can set this to unknown when we first start up. Then if we have a successful login, we want to go to not in group first. And let's add another state here. So not in group, we'll go to our no group screen. So it's not logged in, I'll go to that, and then another case for unknown. If we're in the unknown state, let's go to our splash screen. There. And then let's just add another state for in the group. So in group, we'll just go to home screen. Alright, so now after we have a successful return here, we want to check if the person is in a group as well before we set their state. So how do we do that? We already have the current user state given to us through a provider. So if we do a check for if current user dot get current user dot group ID does not equal null, then I want to set it to the in a group. Else, want to set it to the not in a group state. Alright, this one let's copy to in group. And then one more thing is we have a successful return from the on startup. For return success, that means the user is logged in. That means if it's not successful, we have a user that is not logged in, and we want to set the state to not logged in. Alright, so now if we reload this, we should most likely go to the not in a group state. Let's see if it works. There we go. You saw the loading, and you can see now we're in the book club page because we're not in a group. Alright, next step. Set up the joining and creating of groups for both of these. To be completely certain that that works, we can add a group ID field here. Group ID, a string, hello, whatever. And now if we reload that, actually one more thing before we reload that, we need to go to the database, get user info, return value dot group ID needs to be equal to the document snapshot, data, and then group ID. We weren't reading it before, so we have to make sure we read it. And now if we reload the app, we should be in the group screen. Perfect. And we sign out, goes back to root, and we're in here. If we sign in, goes directly to the group screen. Great. So we know that works. We can remove the group field and go on to our next step. So our next step is to create the join and the create group on the other screen that you will see right now, this screen. So first thing, in order to create a group, we need to have a group model with all the information that we will want for that group. So here we can define our group, and we're going to need a group ID. We're going to need a name for the group. We're going to need a leader who's going to be in charge of the group pretty much. List of strings with the members of the group. And a timestamp of when the group was created. Then let's add a constructor for all of these. Alright, so we have our group defined. Now if we go to this screen, which is our no group screen here, we have two functions, go to join and go to create. So we need to create screens for that as well. So new folder, we can have join group, and inside we'll have a join group.dart. Create group, and then a create group.dart. The code inside here is super simple, so I'll just copy paste it, we'll go through it. Alright, so this is the screen. All we have in here is a scaffold with a column in it. At the top there's a back button, and then a couple spacers to put everything in the middle. And then inside we just have a text form field with group name and a button that says create. That's it. So we're going to want something very similar like this in the join screen as well. And then we can rename it to join group. There, and we're going to change that from group name controller to group ID controller, since we're going to be inputting an ID whenever we want to join. Same thing here, group ID. And then instead of create, let's do join. So there we have both of our screens set up. If we go to this, now we can add methods to push to that screen. And there, now we should have both of the screens working. So we go to create, we should say the create, and then join, we have the join. Simple as that. So now all we need to do is just create the methods for both of these. We're going to do that in our database class, where we have create user, get user info, and now we'll have two more called create group, where we'll need to pass in the group name and the user ID of who's creating the group. We can remove all this nonsense. And then we're going to have another function called join group. And then instead of group name, we're going to have group ID. So to create a group, we're going to await. I'm going to take firestore.collection, and we're going to create a groups collection. And instead of set data like we did with this, we're going to do add. The reason we're going to do add is because we want a return. So when you do add, you get a document reference return. So the reason we want a document reference return is so that we can get the group ID and then add the group ID to the user. So let's get this done first. So we have the name. It's going to be the group name we pass in. We need the leader of the group. That's going to be the user UID we pass in. Then we're going to need to instantiate the members of the group. This is going to be a list. So the way we can pass a list or an array from Firestore's point of view is we do string, then members equals list. And then inside of the list, we're going to add, let's make this members. Members.add user UID. So here it'll just be members. And then of course when the group was created, there's going to be a simple timestamp .now. Alright, so here the group should be created and everything should be working. But now we need to also update the group ID for the user. Remember, our user has a group ID of which group he's in. They'll only be allowed to be in one group, so we don't need to worry about really managing it. We can override it every time they do something new. So firestore.collection users document is user UID. And we want to update data. We want to update the group ID data to document reference dot document ID. And there. So this should create a group and also add that group to the user ID that we own. And let's do this one while we're at it as well. So here, instead of creating a new document for group ID, we await the collection for groups, and we get the document ID from group ID, and we can update data, and we need to add someone to the members list that we have. So the way you can do that is you have to also create a list again, list of string, members. And let's add the person to the list of members. There might be a little better way to do it. You might just be able to pass in the list of members here, but we're going to do it this way. So members.add and then user UID. So we have a list of one member that we want to add to the array in Firestore. So members arrays, you're going to have to do field value dot array union and members. Notice this creates a union of the array. So if there's already a member with the same UID, there'll only be one in that array, which is what we want. So that's fine. Then same thing again. We want to add it to the user's collection. Actually, we could just copy this so we don't have to retype it. The document ID, we have the group ID that is passed in. So there, that should be all we need to do for both joining and creating a group. So now all we need to do is actually call this function in our create screen. We'll call the function create group. Well, I know we'll need at least a build context. And we also need the group name, which is going to be a string. Alright, so here we can do create group. Now we pass the context, and we can pass the group name controller dot text. Alright, so inside this function, we're going to need to get the current user as well, which is very easy given that we're using provider. Provider.of, and we want the current user. Then we have a string that's going to get returned from our database function, so we need to await and also make this asynchronous. Await our database dot create group, and then to this we need to pass in the group name and our user ID for the current user. So current user dot get current user dot UID. So that pretty much creates the whole group. So then we check the return value. If return string is equal to success, we will do a navigator dot push and remove until, and we're going to push it to the root screen again. We push to the root screen because the root's the one that needs to handle where our whole app is going. And if the current user is created correctly and the group is created correctly, our root widget should know that this needs to log us in normally. Also, let's just copy this function because we're gonna have a very similar one for our join screen, join group. So here we can just copy that, and instead of create group, let's say join group. And the group ID is what we're gonna use. Here's gonna be group ID. Now we need to import all these things. And then make sure to call this function as well down here. Context and group ID controller dot text. All right, so everything should be working. Let's pull up Firebase so we can see it working. Let's have it in this corner right here. So we have our users collection. We have 2 users, one with creator bro mail, which is the one we're using right now. So if we create a group, let's do group name creator bros, create, and something's not working. One thing to make note is that this needs to do listen false. So you don't want to listen to any of the responses. And same thing here. I want to do listen false. Alright, now everything should work, hopefully. Let's run it, create, loading, and we'll be put in here. We have a group ID of TLZ. If we refresh this screen, we should see a groups collection that was made with TIZ. Yeah, we have the name is Creator Bros. We have the leader is the UID that I own, one member with that leader, and that's it. So now let's sign out. Let's log in with email. Also, let me check one thing. I think if I remember correctly, when we do login, we log in user with email. After he logs in, we send it to the home screen. So we want to make sure we send him to the root screen, because the root's handling everything, not the home screen. So let's make sure that's done. All right, now we can log in. I think it's creator. Let's check what the account is. Creator at Gmail. All right, so we go here with creator at Gmail. Then we can add a password we have 1, 2, 3, and we log in. We should get taken to this screen, which is correct. Now we can join group ID. It's gonna be tough, but we'll make a way to copy this ID inside the app. But for now, we're gonna have to type it out. Join. So we had the wrong function. We're gonna do the join group function instead. Now we have to remove this. Delete this document. And this user, we gotta delete the group ID because we need to get into the new root screen. And let's try it one more time. And there we go. Now we have 2 group members in here and 1 leader. So it seems like everything is working. I can add some cleanup code to make sure we get a response if we type in a group that doesn't exist when we want to join. We'll probably want to see a pop-up that says this group doesn't exist instead of just nothing. So I'll add that, but we all know how to do that stuff. If you don't, it's in the previous episode. But that's it for this. This code will be on GitHub. If you have any questions or anything, please leave it in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.